I think also I'm part of the problem. It depends the mood I'm in. Because
Hmm.
sometimes I'm like, your breathing makes me want to strangle you.
I don't think that's ick though. I think that's overstimulation. Okay, so welcome to our podcast.
Oh yeah, sorry. I thought we were just having a chat. I'm not very well. Hi, welcome to our podcast. I've got my electric blanket today. I'm going to sit
Really?
here. I'm not going to interrupt Rosie. She's going to
Liar.
just tell me a story, my little bedtime story, and then I'm going to go and have a nap. Hello, and welcome to our podcast.
26 to life, where after 26 years of friendship, we have been together for longer than a life. What?
For longer than a fight. We have been together longer than a fight.
Longer
I'm
than a
Catherine.
And I'm Rosie. Why are you mad?
Sorry, do you remember because you said longer than a fight? Do you remember when we were in like year 5 or 6 and we had our first ever fight and I called you a cow?
Yeah,
Oh,
I still have
God.
still have nightmares about that. I
Good
talk to my
stuff.
therapist. I talk to my therapist about that all the time, every
Not
week.
not not your the rest of your childhood trauma, just
No, just that.
yeah,
Just that. Yeah.
the most
Just that.
stable person in your life.
Yeah, she called me a cow, and I don't think I'll ever get over it. Anyway, before we get started, I'd just like to note that this podcast does cover sensitive topics such as murder and violence against children. So,
Drug use.
and drug use. So please think carefully
Now they know that
before
I
listening.
know what it is. Just a heads up, I don't actually know we're recording this at the end. We're just idiots who forgot to do it at the beginning.
So the story that I have today is based in Scotland, which is the first Scottish story that we've done, I think.
Damn, that's so annoying.
Why? Because you were going to do a Scottish one?
I did a Wales one.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm doing an Northern Ireland one, and then I had a Scotland one planned, and I was like, you only stick to England, and I'm doing one from Wales, one from Ireland, and one from Scotland. I can't say that anymore.
It's funny because the person who's in this story was actually born in Northern Ireland. So really, I cover both.
No, you don't. That's like me saying that I also covered true crime in Vietnam, but I didn't, did I?
A little bit.
No, carry on.
You
Anyway.
broke the rules, but still, it's fine. But this actually happened not far from me, where I am living right now. So I'm in East Dunbartonshire, and this all took place in West Dunbartonshire. So close.
So close. I don't know what that means. How close is that? Is that like East London, North London, South London, West London?
Um, yeah,
Or is it
ish.
like East Lewisham and North Lewisham? What's the
Right.
opposite of East? West. East Lewisham and West Lewisham.
You know what? I'm actually going to put this in maps right now and tell you exactly how far this place is from my house.
Great. I'm going to just eat a giant Oreo on mute.
Half an hour, 29 minutes from me. 25 minutes. 29 minutes, not 25. 29. Sorry, I did say 25. Honestly, I just can't speak, but it's fine. So it's up near Loch Lomond. You know Loch Lomond? What? Okay, can you... I need something. You got...
Don't like it when I'm quiet, do you?
I might as well just talk to myself. No, mute yourself again. I'll just say it as if I'm just, just the solo
Loch as
podcaster.
in Loch water lock.
Yeah, Loch Lomond. Never heard of it?
Mm-mm.
What?
Where does the Loch Ness monster live?
I'll give you one guess.
Loch Lomond.
The Loch Ness monster.
I thought it's no. Man.
That may be the stupidest thing that you've ever said.
I just assumed it was like
That was...
called Nessie or Loch Ness.
I mean, they do call it Nessie, but it's a Loch Ness monster. It's the monster of Loch Ness. Oh, that I cannot believe that we actually got that recorded. That is just going to make me happy for the rest of my life. Anyway, this all
I
starts...
can't believe you think that's the stupidest thing I've ever said. I say some really stupid stuff.
No, that... It's just because I set it up for you, and you just did not let me down.
Anyway, we're at Loch Lomond. You're really going off topic today.
Wow, okay. We're not at Loch Lomond. It just happened. This is where it's based around in the area surrounding Loch Lomond, but it's about 29 minutes from where I live. But we're going to start talking about. So we're going to start by talking
What
about.
about? Hmm?
Bit about that. Duh. We're going to start by talking about Caroline Glachan. That's the only time I'm going to say that name because I probably said it wrong, and I'm never going to. I can't bother to embarrass myself further. So she was born in Northern Ireland in on the 8th of January 1982. I feel like you're going to say something, or what are you doing?
Weird, isn't she's got a Scottish surname though, isn't Glachan?
Well, they moved. I couldn't find anything about why they moved, but I can only assume that perhaps it was because one of her parents were Scottish.
Let's be
Um,
honest, at the time it's probably her dad.
Probably. But I couldn't find anything about when they moved or why they moved. But by the time she was 14, she was living in Scotland, and I assume that she's been there for a while. But she was an only child. Her mum had had 5 miscarriages before she had Caroline, and Caroline was like premature and tiny, and so she was a like a miracle. They were so pleased to finally have a sweet, sweet, sweet baby. She was very loving, very caring, and she had the most beautiful smile. She was like a typical teenager, 14 years old, in the 90s. You would go out, play on the streets, and, be a bit of a ragamuffin. And in the summer of 1996, she actually started dating an 18-year-old boy
And
at
how old was she?
14. Yeah. Her mum and her friends obviously did not approve. Apparently her mum even went up to him and said, What do you think you're doing? Like what do you have anything to do with a 14-year-old girl? Like what do you want with her? Why are you doing this? Like surely there are people your own age that you could be dating. But not only was he too old, but he was also just like people described him as a nasty piece of work. He had a bit of a name about him. He was notorious for just being a bad egg. And not only that, he was in a relationship with another girl at the same time who happened to be pregnant with his baby. So it was all just a bit of a messy situation. So for me, although they described her as like a typical teenager, it feels like she was maybe a little bit more rebellious than your average teenager, you know?
Mm.
On the 24th of August, her parents were going out to celebrate her mum's 40th
No,
birthday.
I can't do it. I can't stay quiet the whole time. I just had so many things that I wanted to say throughout that entire thing, and I kept my mouth shut. Don't you find it funny how they always say, like, oh, she's just got a beautiful smile and she's just an angel? Like, imagine if we were all honest. You went missing, I would be like, Rose, she was beautiful, funny, really stubborn. Yeah, she could be an absolute dick, if I'm honest. If you did it about me, you'd be like, yeah, she was just wonderful, wonderful mother, wonderful friend, thick as shit. Like, honestly, thick as two planks. Book smart, yes, but
Yeah,
common sense, there was
thick.
none.
Nothing,
Like,
yeah.
I
And then
just
I'd
think
be
that'd be
like,
such.
don't worry, she'll show up because you'll be able to hear her before you find her.
No kidnapper is putting up with that for too long. She'll be
Yeah,
dead within the day, or they'll bring her back. They're
yeah,
not if it goes past 48 hours, she's dead, because they're not keeping her alive
yeah.
for any longer.
Genuinely, I would be
If
like,
she fun facts them about those handcuffs that they use, she is gonna drive them into an early grave.
yeah. They'll literally give her the car and be like, no, that's fine.
Drive
You
us off a cliff. See you later.
see you never. Oh gosh, it's so true because you can kind of read through the lines and be like, no, this child really put her mum through her
Yeah,
paces,
but
like,
that's okay. I'm
and
not
because
saying
that's
that as in,
being a
like,
teenager
that
as
is being.
well, yeah.
You could say that. Like, I was such a pain in the backside
Mm,
teenager, and I find it so funny because obviously, if I'd gone missing, my parents would have been like, "She's just a sweetheart, like beautiful
yeah,
soul." Da 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 da. Let's be honest. Yes, I was, but equally, but man, I am the reason my mother is grey. Like
yeah.
1000%.
I can confirm. Yeah, I can confirm. You really are. Um, so On the 24th of August, her parents were going out to celebrate her mum's 40th birthday, and they were going to be back late, so they were going out on the town, having a drink, going to see their friends. And so Caroline asked if her best friend Joanne could stay over. And Joanne, when you hear from Joanne later on, she says that Caroline's mum was like a mum to her. So very much like our relationship growing up. So obviously her mum was like, yeah, of course you can have Joanne over. It's like if you asked for me to have a sleepover, your mum was never ever going to say no because she loved me and I loved her, and she is still like a mum to me. So they were walking around Bonhill where they live. They were obviously taking advantage of her
Oh,
parents. Bonhill, Bonhill.
that's such a cute name.
Yeah, it was a bit of a shithole apparently. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, it's not a great area.
I tried.
They described it as like a scheme area, but I don't know if that's a Scottish thing because I've never heard that in
S
England. A
S K
scheme.
E E M or
S
SCH?
C H SCHEME. Like I guess like
Like you're scheming, like you're plotting and planning.
yeah, but I don't know if it's like red brick kind of estates or like kid brick
What does
estate
that?
kind of scheme, you know, like the I
What do you
don't
mean by a
honestly
red? Sorry, I need to rearrange my legs. What do you mean by a red brick estate?
like I think I've heard red brick estates being described as like because they're red brick, they're all like made really cheap. They're like stacked on top of each other, trying to keep costs down. So, they were walking around Bonhill, where they lived, taking advantage of her parents not being home. I mean, they were supposed to be having a sleepover, but Caroline told Joanne she was going to go meet her boyfriend, this 18-year-old that we hate. And she gave Joanne her house keys, said, go back to my house and I will meet you back at mine before my mum gets home before 2 a.m. So
Before 2 a.m.
I know, and she's 14. This was already like 11 o'clock. They parted ways at 11:45, and she said she's going over to the Black Bridge to meet her boyfriend. It already sounds sketchy.
They're in scheme area going to the Black Bridge. This is
Hmm.
dodgy.
Yeah.
Well,
And to get to the Black Bridge, you have to like walk along a towpath along the river. Like it's not well lit. It's not.
what's a towpath?
It's like literally the path that runs parallel to a river.
Why would you
Um,
call it a towpath?
because
Do
they
you
used
tow
to
things?
tow. Yeah, they used to use it to tow the boats along. You learn something new every day. So her boyfriend lived on the other side of the river in an area called Renton, which was equally as bad. And this
WREN or REN?
Renton. Is this relevant?
I don't know, I've just got to picture it. I'm sorry.
Renton.
Otherwise, I get stuck on it. Go
Renton. And so this Black Bridge would connect the two, Bonhill and Renton. But the towpath to get to it and the area around Black Bridge, it was notorious for where people would often go to abuse drugs. So it wasn't a great area at all. It was very sketchy. So Caroline and Joanne parted ways at around 11:45 p.m. Joanne went back to Caroline's house and Caroline went on to meet her boyfriend. And she was never seen again. So Caroline's mum came home, saw that Joanne was in her room, but no Caroline. She called around. She thought it's not the first time that she's been out late and not called. So she called around to see if anyone had seen her. But by the morning, she was panicking a bit. But by the afternoon, the police had come knocking on her door to say that her body had been found in the river Leven and they needed her to identify it. And sure enough, it was 14-year-old Caroline. So her body had been found face down in the River Leven. She was fully clothed, except for that her shoes had been removed. Her post-mortem showed that she suffered blunt force trauma with at least 10 blows to her head and face, but she was alive when she entered the water. Ultimately, her cause of death was drowning. So they
So she
believed
could
that,
have been unconscious, or she could have just been
yeah,
hit. Or
no, they believed that the blows to her head had rendered her unconscious, and then she had fallen in the water, and they'd left her there essentially, and then she had drowned once she'd been in the water. Um, it was so the size of the. I mean, it gives a lot of this information, but it's not really relevant in the end. The wounds are consistent with a long, narrow, blunt weapon, so something like maybe a pipe or a bar or something like that. Um, but there was no evidence of drugs or alcohol in her system. And that was pretty much everything that the post-mortem. Yep, go on.
You know, she had this boyfriend and she would like hang around in these sketchy areas and stuff. Was she known to drink and take drugs?
That comes up in the trial, which we'll go through in a minute. So yeah, I will definitely bring that up.
I was just thinking, like, you know, if they were to find it, is it completely out of the realm of possibility? Or if they don't find it, is it like, oh, that's weird? Because if she'd met up with her boyfriend, chances are they would have been drinking. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, but yeah, so the police divers went in to recover the body and search for evidence all along the river, within the river, along the banks, along the path, that like looking along the ways that she would have been walking to and from. And that although they collected over 300 pieces of evidence and interviewed hundreds of different people, the initial investigation didn't really find much. A lot of the witnesses were quite young because of that age group. They were 14 to 18-year-olds, and in that kind of area where there are a lot of drugs, there is a lot of crime, nobody wanted to speak out to the police because you were seen as being a grass, that
Yeah.
it was the grass mentality, which I saw a lot coming up. And I mean, if you're listening to this from abroad, a grass is basically someone that snitches. I don't know if that's a
Snitches get
well-known.
stitches.
Yeah, being a grass isn't really something that they use worldwide, I don't think. Anyway, being a grass.
No, it's being a snitch.
Yeah, yeah,
Or a
that's what.
sneak.
Yeah. Snitches get stitches.
Which is such
So,
a stupid thing.
oh, for sure. But it was the culture to steal from shops to be able to buy drugs, and it wasn't. Yeah, it was just that kind of area. It was a very, very poor, very scheme kind of area. I keep on saying that, but I actually don't know what it means. They obviously looked into the boyfriend and his pregnant girlfriend.
How old was the
Obviously.
girlfriend, or do we not know?
We don't know. And at this point in the investigation, they didn't name any of them because they couldn't prove that any of them were suspects, and they couldn't. They were all like 17, 18 kind of age, so they didn't release their names because they weren't allowed to. So at this point in the investigation, nobody really knew what had been going on. So they looked into the boyfriend and his pregnant girlfriend, obviously. Like I said before, her mum and their best friend Joanne didn't approve of their relationship, and Joanne even went as far to say that their relationship was violent, and on numerous occasions she had to stop him from attacking her, like grabbing her neck and slamming her into the wall kind of attack. He was just
How is this little 14-year-old stopping this big 18-year-old?
I know. He was just like a big bully. He said that he would kill her if she ever kissed somebody else. And his pregnant girlfriend was not happy about the fact that they were both seeing the same guy, and even has been said would pretty much just beat Caroline up if she ever saw her.
These all sound like lovely, really well-rounded people.
They sound like prime suspects, but they and their two friends apparently were babysitting all night, and they said that they never left the house, and they seem to corroborate it. So they seem to have corroborated that, and so they weren't able to look into them anymore. Go on.
Did he have an explanation as to why she was saying she was going to meet him if he was babysitting with his girlfriend and friends?
No, not that I was aware of. But again, this will come up a little bit later. Witness came forward and said that she had been driving in the area with her boyfriend and saw two men running from the Black Bridge. This was, see, I realise that I've got two times written down, so I'm assuming that they just weren't consistent. But it was around 1 a.m. in the morning, 1 a.m., 1:30. So Caroline had left Joanne at around 11:45 p.m. and this was now on Sunday, that morning of that same evening, if that makes sense. So the early hours of the following morning.
So they split up at about 11:45
on Saturday
night. Joanne to go back to the house with the keys to Caroline's house.
Yep.
Caroline to meet her boyfriend.
Yeah.
Maybe, we don't know.
And now this witness has seen two men running from the Black Bridge area at around 1 a.m, 1:30-ish. And she identified one of the men as a man called George Graham. Now, George Graham supposedly knew Caroline. He would give her lifts down across the river to see her boyfriend. Don't really know why. I couldn't find out how old he was. It all just seems a bit weird. Because like, why are you just giving lifts to a 14-year-old girl to go see her boyfriend? Like, I don't know. It just all seems like a really weird situation. But anyway, he had weirdly confessed to the murder to several people, but the police never chased up on this. There's never been any evidence to place him to that scene or connecting him to Caroline at the time of her death. So that was never.
That's a big old nothing burger.
Yeah, a big old nothing burger, except for the fact that he did confess to the murder, but then also a lot of these people that we're talking about and that we will talk about later were all known heroin addicts at the time. So it's whether or not they were honest, whether or not they were telling the truth. So yeah, you kind of have to take a bunch of things with a pinch of salt. Go on.
Question about heroin.
Yeah.
Were you doing that on purpose? Are you trying to make a point?
Yeah, a little bit. Go on.
You know, so some drugs make you high out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine LSD. But you may not remember everything that happened, right? But you're still functioning.
Yeah.
You're still up and awake. With heroin, is that the same, or do you pass out?
Honestly, I don't know.
Could you have done loads of stuff on heroin and not remember it? Is my question.
I genuinely could not answer that. I actually don't know. I think the extent of my knowledge to do with heroin is from the book and movie Trainspotting.
And I'm scared of that movie and have only seen about 30 seconds, and he injects it into his arm and then goes...
Yeah.
So I'm thinking you just then lie there in kind of a comatose state. So
yeah, that's the thing. I don't entirely know, but I think the idea is that, so I don't, not necessarily about him doing drugs and forgetting about it, but I think it's more the fact that when you are an addict, it obviously is fucking with your mental state and your memory, and it really is degrading your brain, you know,
it's capacity to...
Yeah. Exactly. So I think that's whether or not he's, I don't know. There's just a lot about how heroin users are maybe not the most reliable witnesses when they're saying these things and testifying.
Well, eyewitnesses are already massively unreliable, and then add in drug use.
So a taxi driver also said he saw a young girl believed to be Caroline walking towards the bridge, but there was also a man in a dark green hoodie with the hood up walking behind her. He described him as having sharp features, and they released a drawing, but nobody ever came forward. And I mean, the drawing is just a man with the hood up. He's got a big pointy nose, and that's pretty much the only distinguishing feature. And it's... Go on.
Was there any mention of sexual abuse of Caroline?
No sexual abuse. Eventually, the case went cold. It was shown on Crime Watch twice. It's featured in several podcasts and TV shows highlighting unsolved murders. But they officially reopened the case in 2019. The investigation...
Oh, wow.
The investigation was much more successful. Like, they did all of the 20-year anniversary, trying to get more information, but nothing really stuck. And then it wasn't until 2019 that they're like, you know what, we're reopening this case. This is no longer a cold case. We are doing something about it. And obviously I said before about how in the 90s it was very much a drug culture, and people were scared of certain people and you didn't want to speak up to be a grass. But 23 years later, allegiances had changed. You know, people didn't really care so much about those that they were scared of 23 years ago, you know? And
those teenagers have grown up anymore.
Exactly. They've grown up and
they're parents, and they know what it's like to have a child, and they can imagine that child having gone missing or died or anything like that, and they're like, yeah. No,
exactly. So this new investigation was much more successful in terms of people getting involved. They had pretty much exhausted all of the forensic evidence, so they didn't really have much more that they could do with that. Even with the progression in forensic techniques, they didn't find anything that would make a break in that case, even when they went back and retested some of that evidence. But they found that going back to basics and good old investigative work was all that they needed. And in 2021, 3 people were charged with the murder of Caroline Glachan. This was Robert O'Brien, Donna Brand, and Andrew Kelly. And as I said, at this point, because nobody had been named before, except for that George Graham guy, nobody actually knew who these people were in relation to Caroline. They didn't know if they had anything to do with him. I was listening to a podcast and they had released their podcast just around the time that they had announced these people had been arrested. But they said, who is this? They were saying at the end, they were like, we don't know who this is. We don't know if that's her boyfriend. We don't know if this Donna is like, did she have a friend called Donna that we didn't know about? Like
Was she the pregnant girlfriend? Was she
exactly? They had absolutely no idea. So there was a lot going around about who the hell are these people and how they connected. So it turns out that Robert, also known as Robbie, was Caroline's boyfriend. Donna was in fact his pregnant girlfriend, and Andrew was one of the friends that they were allegedly babysitting with.
So their foolproof alibi was just
Exactly. And they also suspected another woman called Sarah Jane O'Neill, who was Andrew's girlfriend at the time and would have been the other female, the 4th babysitter. But
so why did they never question that? That's like the other day when you said to me, why did they trust the wife?
Oh, we'll get there. We never really understand why they just trusted them and why they didn't get some of this information beforehand. But what matters is that they have got them now. But that 4th person, as I was saying, she died in 2019, so that's why she couldn't be arrested. Obviously, that kind of.
How did she die?
I couldn't find anything about that either. Couldn't find. So the trial began. The trial began in December 2023.
December or December? December. Sorry, sure. December. Yeah.
It's December. Did you know that courts in Scotland don't do opening statements? Did you know that?
So what do?
They just go straight into the evidence. They don't do an opening statement to say, welcome, ladies of the jury, this is what we're going to talk to you about today.
Ladies, just women.
Just women should be on the jury.
Just have the sensible ones.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I guess. They just go straight into the evidence. So you sit down and they're like, bam, this person died. So, one of the first pieces of evidence that they gave was a video of the scene that showed where Caroline was found, and you could see her body floating in the river, and it was actually harrowing. Like, she was face down in the river. They showed her white trainers, brand new white trainers on the bank. And I mean, the judge had said at the time, like, we're only going to show this to you once. We don't expect you to have to watch this multiple times, but we really do think that it's important to the case. And the judge said, if anyone wants to leave, please feel free to do so. And I mean, they were showing it, and people did actually just get up and go because it was not nice. I can't imagine having to watch that, especially if you knew that person as well. And her poor mum was in the courtroom, and she had to see that. Go on.
Was that video from the police who found her? Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Whoa, that's intense.
Yeah, really intense. Something that else that come up during this investigation was that Caroline had told her friend that she was pregnant, and this was something that hadn't really come up much before from what I could find, and it wasn't until the trial that this all kind of got blown up a little bit more. So this really kicked things off. Joanne was saying that she was excited to go and see Robbie to tell him about it, but could this have been the catalyst for that confrontation? Because if Donna obviously had found out that she's also pregnant, then I mean everything would have just blown up massively. But the post-mortem showed that there wasn't any sign of pregnancy whatsoever. So although it wasn't true, whether or not her even thinking that or saying that could have been what started this whole thing. One of the TV programs that I watched about this, it was actually quite relatively new. It's on BBC and it's mostly about the murder trial. So it was all different statements, then putting everything together, all of the different witnesses and comparing that evidence from witness statements back in 1996 to what they were saying now. And so it was really interesting to see. There's like a whole series on it. It's literally called Murder Trial, The Girl in the River. But there's Murder Trial and then other cases as well that they do. But it's all on BBC, so it seems like something that you would definitely like. But one of the things that came up a lot was that the witness statements changed a lot. So, for example, one person said that in 1996 she hadn't seen Caroline for a few days, but then when she was questioned in 2020, she said that she had actually seen her just a few hours before she was killed, but she then admitted to lying because she was an addict and she didn't want to be seen as a grass. So she was scared of the gang that she referred to the gang, but I think that was referring to like Robbie and Donna and
the gang of people as opposed to a gang.
Yeah, or whether or not they were like technically a gang because they would go around and cause havoc. I don't know. So that was just one of the examples, and so the defense obviously they really took that and ran with it and was like, how much can a heroin addict actually remember all of these years later? How much can we actually trust them? If they weren't telling the truth then, are they actually telling the truth now? That kind of thing. So they really pulled a lot of these witness statements apart. But one of the main ones was that the police, when they opened this investigation in 2019, they wanted to trace everyone that had lived in that area around where those 4 friends were babysitting. First of all, I don't know why you would ask these people that are some kind of a gang to babysit, but
unless it was just one of them and they just invited their friends.
So the person who they were babysitting for, they were babysitting a young boy called Archie, and he was 4 years old, and his younger sibling, who was around 2, and the babysitters were Andy, and Sarah, so their boyfriend, girlfriend. So they would look after Archie regularly, pretty much every week. This woman said that she would go over to her sister's or she'd go out either Friday or Saturday every week, and Andrew and Sarah would come and look after the kids. But she didn't expect anyone else to be there, nor did she ever agree for anyone else to be there. So it was very much the case of those 2 were supposed to be babysitting and the others just tagged along, and it was like a free house kind of situation. But
you'd be so mad, wouldn't you, if you were the parent?
What would make me even more mad is the fact that afterwards her son told her that the 2, so Robbie and Donna, were heating up tinfoil. And he didn't know what that meant, but they were literally doing heroin in the same house as these poor, sweet babies. Like, and those weren't even the people that you'd ask to babysit. Like, it's just, it's gross. So she returned on Sunday morning. So she'd gone out on the Saturday.
This is the mother of the children.
This was the mother. Yeah, Archie is the one that we care about. Archie was the 4-year-old, and she came home on the Sunday. She'd been out all night, and she noticed that the carpet's wet. And at the time, Andy had just said that Archie had peed on the carpet, and that's why the carpet was so wet. And I mean, he was potty trained, but she didn't really think anything of it. But when she spoke to Archie afterwards, Archie said that they had gone down to the River Leven. And
Archie as well.
Oh no. And she said, when? And he said, last night. And she was like, what? And she said, yeah, there was someone, he said, yeah, there was someone sitting on the floor and she was soaking wet. And Robbie and Donna were there too, and they were fighting with another girl, and she ended up falling in the river and they were beating her. And this is what this 4-year-old was saying. There's even like a video of him talking, this was him talking to his mum, but there was a video of him talking to the police officers afterwards as well. They recorded it. And
This little tiny poodle of a
Oh,
child.
but he was just like, he was so blasé, like he didn't really know what it meant that he was doing, and he was like, they were like, he had a piece of paper in front of him, and he was like, oh, I can draw the river, and the policeman was like, oh, you draw the river, go ahead, and he was like, with the pencil, like scribbling all over this paper, drawing a river, and like, it was quite wholesome, to be fair, but. It didn't really seem as if he really understood what it is that he'd seen, but he said that one of the things that had come up was that the defence asked the police officer, had you ever received any formal training of how to interview a child? And the police officer was like, no, I don't think there was any formal training at that point. Like, I just did what I knew. And the defence was like, so you just did as best as you could then, kind of thing. And you're like, oh, fuck off.
Shut up.
I know, tell me about it. They were literally, I know it's the defence's job, but they were literally picking apart everything. But Archie, the young boy, he said that he saw Robbie hitting this other girl that he didn't know with a metal pole, and it went into her eye. And he specifically said about the eye, and the pathologist had confirmed that injury, but there was no way that Archie could have known specifically about that eye injury because it wasn't in any of the papers, it wasn't in any of the reports, and he was 4 years old. And this is the thing, is that they kept on saying, like, they were picking this apart massively because they were saying, so Archie had obviously told his mum the day of when she got back on the Sunday, and then it wasn't until a few hours later that Caroline's body was found. So they didn't they then interviewed Archie on the Monday, but then the defence were arguing that over that time period, those 24 hours after they found Caroline's body, that he could have picked up some information from...
Yeah, but first, he had already told his mum prior to the body being found. And second,
Exactly.
In what world are you sitting there reading to your 4-year-old the newspaper about a murder of a 14-year-old?
Exactly, that's what's so annoying. And they're like... And
stupid.
They were saying that he could have just overheard and kids pick up things, but what are the chances that he hears everyone talking about this and he thinks that it's connected to what he saw the night before? Like, there's just no... Surely, I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to me, but they really picked this apart. But unfortunately, Archie had grew up to develop some medical issues, so he couldn't give evidence at the actual court in 2020, but they did go over all of his past statements and that video recording that they'd done as well. But they'd also done they'd written out a statement from his well and basically done, so apart from the video interview, they'd also done a face-to-face interview before that. And so, wait, let me get this timeline right. He told his mum on the Sunday what happened, and then on the Monday they did an interview, and then a month later they did the video interview. So on the Monday they just wrote it down and made notes, and
that
then it wasn't
stupid though to wait a month.
Well, exactly, for a 4-year-old as well. But they really ripped apart his statements and were saying about how different it all was. But at the end of the day, a 4-year-old has said that he went down to the river. Like, why on earth would you come home? Exactly. Like, what are the chances that he's going to say, yeah, we went down to the river? Like, he's 4 years old. He's not going to make up that kind of thing. But anyway,
I don't know, actually, though. Once Leo told me an entire story when he was about 4 about someone making toast and it setting on fire, and a fire ambulance and a fire truck came, and it was a dream. And I was like, oh my god, you're making toast on a barbecue? Oh my god. And it set on fire? Really? Leo was like, yeah. Okay, I think that says more about me than him. No, I believe him.
Brilliant. But anyway, they were still... Defence obviously ripped that apart. But it was still... I mean, it was pretty strong. But to add to this, there was one neighbour in particular that they spoke to, and they had spoken to her in 1996, because they were doing a door-to-door sweep, basically. They were just going door-to-door, trying to get some information, different information. And these 4 people, the 4 suspects, they had said that they had been in the house all night, never left the house. But one neighbour said that she heard people coming in and out. She said that at midnight she was waiting for a film to start, because remember, back in the day, we didn't have DVDs, we didn't have Sky Plus. You just had to check the TV guide. There's a good movie coming on at midnight, so you're staying up till midnight to watch it. And so she was waiting for this film to start at midnight, and
I could never now.
oh God, me either. But she heard everyone leaving, and it was so loud because she said that you could hear them bumping the buggy down the stairs because they had obviously taken the baby out.
So there's Archie and a little baby, isn't there?
And one that's 2 years old. So she went to the window, she saw Sarah Jane with the buggy. Archie was holding on to the side of the buggy, Andy and another male and female, but she didn't know the other 2, and they went towards the main road. She then heard them coming back. She couldn't say what time, but it was, her movie was like started by then, and it was into the movie. And Sarah Jane came back, and it had even woken up her daughter, because there were lots of loud voices shouting, sounded like crying, very distressed kind of sounds, and they even were saying that they could hear Sarah Jane shouting, "You're a dick, you're a prick, that was a setup, that wasn't meant to happen." And defense ripped this apart. The defense spoke to that woman in particular, and then also her daughter, who had been 10 years old at the time, and because they were both saying, like, they were using the word wailing, that they could hear wailing, and then they were saying, "Isn't it convenient that you and your mum both used the word wailing?" She's like, "Yeah, that's because that's the sound that I would have described." He said, "Yeah, but you didn't describe it as wailing when you were 10." And she's like, "Well, yeah, because I wouldn't have used the word wailing when I was 10." Like, and they're like, they were saying to her, "But you and your mum, you've spoken about this case before a lot, haven't you?" She's like, "Well, yeah, because I was 10 years old and it was quite traumatizing." She said, "So isn't it weird how you and your mum have both been using the same words?" And she said, "Well, yeah." Like, it was painful to listen to.
Up.
But she was, she was good. She really, like, fought back and was like, please, come on. I wouldn't have used it when I was 10 years old, but I'm using it now. And it doesn't, she was like, I remember it because I don't forget something like that. And she was, like, very firm. And the guy was like, "Okay, thanks. Thank you. Okay, great. Yep. Tell me."
I think she was going to meet Robbie.
Okay.
I think that's why.
That's not what we're doing. I'm telling you about the trial.
Sorry.
That's not what we're doing. There was another witness who said that he was at the River Leven at around 11:45 p.m. and he heard a scream. He said that it sounded female and it came from the riverside. He also heard a female voice shout, "I did nae say that." And you specifically have to say "did nae" because that's what they say. Did that was brave. I was not going to try and do an accent.
I can't do a Scottish accent, so it probably came out Irish.
Yeah, I can't do any accents, so that's why I just didn't even try. I could barely even say her last name. So the defence were also massive dick when they were speaking to Caroline's mum. They brought up the fact that her bank card was missing. They mentioned that Caroline had tried heroin, but they all were saying that her best friend was saying, "What?
She tried heroin?"
Yeah. They were all saying, like, Joanna said, "Yeah, she tried heroin, but she said she didn't like it. She didn't like it. She didn't take it regularly. Like, it wasn't something that she enjoyed doing. So no, she wasn't an addict." Her mum, they really tried to push this heroin thing because they mentioned that her mum had been missing jewellery. They were basically just calling Caroline majorly untrustworthy, trying to hint at the fact that she had stolen her mum's bank card, stolen her mum's jewellery, and she had sold it and used it to buy drugs, and that's why she was going down to the river so she could go and take drugs and blah blah blah. But there was no drugs in her system, so we know for sure that that was a lie, that she wasn't there for drugs. And even if she was, that doesn't explain why she was beaten and left to drown in the
Exactly.
river.
That was what I was about to say. If you prove that she was a drug addict, are you in the same breath saying that so it's okay she died?
Exactly. No, honestly, I think they were just trying to prove the fact that she was there, she could have had drugs on her, and that was why she was died. That's why she was killed. But anyway, there was one. I mean, I don't really know. Oh no, so there was one man called Daniel, and he was the man who found the body. I don't know why they were trying to break this guy down, but they started talking about how he was an addict as well, and that he used to sell heroin. And what made me laugh was that the defense said, "So you would be walking around with large amounts of heroin." And this man interjects and he says, "In that area, you don't need to walk around. You just need to sit in one place and you'll sell 10 bags in 10 minutes." The defense were just like, "Okay, thanks."
Oh,
and like, no more questions. So remember her friend, Joanne? She was her best friend. They also bring up the drug abuse to her. They're trying to catch her out, and they were saying to her, well, if she had drugs, what would she do with them? And she said, well, she'd either put them in her shoes or she'd put them in her bra. And they were like, so she would put the drugs in her shoes. And she was like, well, yeah, but it's not as if she had drugs often. I would know if she had drugs on her and she didn't have drugs on her that day. But they were trying to say that the reason that her shoes had been removed was because she had put drugs in her shoes to hide them, and that was why somebody had taken them off, because they knew that she kept drugs in her shoes.
Right.
And so this was
Say that's true. So what?
So what? She still got murdered. There was another Donna not the Donna who
Not
is being
pregnant
sentenced.
Donna.
Not pregnant Donna. She was also another friend of Caroline's, and she had gone down to the river to put down flowers. She and another friend were there. They heard rustling in the bushes, and Robbie came out with a baseball bat. And Julie, the other girl that was there, said, "Did you hit wee Caroline with that?" And they said that he hit the bat twice off the ground and said, I fucking did. Donna at the time, Donna didn't say anything. She waited 24 years to tell the police, so pretty much as this trial was going on. But she said that she hadn't said anything because her friend Julie had reported it, and so she didn't feel the need to say anything at the time because it was Julie that had reported it herself. But then Julie, when she came forward at this trial, she said that she couldn't remember the incident at all. They read out her statement to her at the time, and she said, well, yeah, at the time that was the truth. Like, I'm sure I wouldn't have said it if it were a lie. But she was a heroin addict at the time, so whether or not, she just doesn't remember, because that is just a cloudy period of her life. And the defence accused her of luring Robbie there, and she sassed him big time and was like, no, I would never do that. She was like, we didn't like Robbie. We didn't want to see anything to do. We didn't want anything to do with him. He didn't run in the same circles. I would never lure him anywhere. Like, it's just not something that I would do.
He's
and they were
just
like,
a grub.
Yeah, and they were saying, yeah, that's why you lured him there, you know? And she was like, no, we wanted justice. We didn't want, like, if we wanted to take justice into our own hands, don't you think we would have done this a long time ago? Like, she was really like,
But also,
she was like,
you've lured him there and then done
and
nothing.
then what? Yeah, exactly. It's just
and beat him with your flowers.
Yeah.
With your peonies. You twat.
Oh. So stupid. So there was also so the prosecution, they had also said that the carpets in the house were wet, not because Archie had peed, but because it was obviously wet from them being down at the river. So they had an expert in analysing diatoms. Do you know what diatoms are?
Yeah.
What are they?
Funnily enough, because we will talk about this in my next case, it's a really important part. It's how they identify what type of water it is. So
Mm.
it will be different. I don't really understand the science behind it, but essentially, from what I understand, it will be different if it's seawater, sewage water, lake water, river
Fresh
water,
water, yeah.
fresh water.
Yeah, so they describe it as like microscopic algae.
Yeah.
So,
Hold on.
and that,
They're doing
go
this
on.
24 years later.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So
Surely
these
the carpets have
di
been changed.
these diatoms are not found in tap water. They analysed the carpet, they analysed the victim's clothing from 2020, so Caroline's clothing, and lots of diatoms were on the victim's clothing, obviously, because they've been sealed in a bag. But no diatoms were identified on the carpet. But I mean, that's the thing. It was literally 20 years later. People, not, I mean, I don't know if they would have changed the carpet, but people have been living on it for 20 years. Like, there'd be so much stuff on it. And
Yeah,
I
and
don't know
I'm
how long these
thinking,
things live, but
okay, so Arlo often goes swimming in water, comes in and gets the rug wet.
mm,
Surely, after cleaning every day, walking over it, adding new water or new stuff afterwards, or,
yeah,
like it all gets.
yeah, exactly. So none of the accused, all three of them, they were all in the same trial, none of them chose to give evidence except for Robbie.
Oh,
Um,
of course he did.
of
Morning,
course he did.
idiot.
It can be hard. Obviously, it can be hard to be in the witness box because you've got these professional lawyers that are picking apart everything that you're saying. They are trying to catch you out, and you could likely say something wrong. And obviously, the jury, if you come across as being a bit of a dick or a bit of an arse, the jury are going to pick up on that, you know? But anyway, it was quite funny because he sat down and he asked the judge if he could say something, and the judge was like, "No, just answer the questions." Robbie was like trying to be all polite and be like, could I just say something
Please,
before I
sir.
start? Yeah, and he was like, no, that's not what we're doing. Just
No,
answer the
shut
question.
your pie hole. Sit down.
Thank God. But the way that he spoke about Caroline was gross. They said, so you were seeing Caroline at the time, and he said, yeah, they were having sex. She was pretty much just a friends with benefits. They said, where exactly were you having sex? And he said, anywhere we could, really, just like this, that, and the other. It was just gross. And then they were said, are
She
you
was a child.
a literal child? And they had said to him, do you not understand that it's wildly inappropriate for you as an 18-year-old to be sleeping with a 14-year-old? And he was like, at the time, I didn't have great role models. I didn't really think of that about that. And they was like, but you can that you didn't answer the question. Like, can you tell me that you understand that that is incredibly like gross? And he was just kept on avoiding the question, and then in the end he was like, now I can see, yes, it wasn't great, but at the time didn't have any role models, didn't know what I was doing, blah blah blah. And then they said about how oh, and you were also seeing Donna, and they said, and he said, yeah, I was also seeing Donna, and she said, well, and the defence asked him something like, I guess that makes you a bit of a ladies' man. He said, well, I was seeing about 5 girls at the same time, so don't know about that. And I was like, ew, like, gross. But then they were asking him about how the carpet got wet, and he said that he kicked over a tumbler of water 3 or 4 times, and that's how the carpet got wet. And the prosecution were like, so you filled up a glass of
Repeatedly
water,
picked it up, sat it there, then did it
tipped it
again.
over, and then did it again. And the prosecutor was like, so you're telling me that you didn't learn from to watch out from that first glass or that second glass, or you just put it somewhere else? And he was like, guess not. And it was just like, you're so gross. But anyway, he denied seeing her, he denied killing her, he still denied ever leaving, and he even denied hitting her as well. And after all of this, I mean, what do you think from everything that I've said and from the way that the defence have ripped apart? They don't have any evidence, they don't have any like forensic evidence. All of it is just based on witness statements and yeah, pretty much just people's word, you know?
I
What
think
are your
they
thoughts?
set her up. I think she was told to go and meet Robbie at this time in a specific place. I think Donna and whoever else, they, I don't know, going to teach her a lesson or whatever, gone down there, hit her a number of times, fell unconscious, fell in the water, and that was that. I don't think they necessarily intended to kill her,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, that's what I mean. In terms of the shoes,
But in terms of this whole trial, as they've put it forward with their witness statements, what would you think if you were on the jury and you heard all of this? Would you have reasonable doubt?
no, I can't see in what I'm doubting.
Well, just the fact that there isn't any actual evidence. There's no evidence
But
to actually put them
there's also
there.
but there's enough witness evidence. It's not like it's one person's word. There's enough witness evidence. There's multiple people.
Even though it is based on what a 4-year-old boy has said 20 years ago.
I don't buy that he would. I understand that if. How do I explain this? So, if you ask a 4-year-old, you went to the shops, yeah, and then they can't remember what you bought while you're at the shops, that's one thing. I don't think a 4-year-old imagines leaving the house, the boy and the girl getting into a fight. Like, it's too coincidental. No, I don't think it's. Yeah. I think I'd be convinced. I don't think I'm convinced of exactly why, and I don't think I'm convinced of exactly how they planned it. But I'm convinced that's what happened. Yeah, they're found not guilty, aren't they?
No, they're all found guilty.
Okay.
They're all sentenced to life imprisonment they were all convicted of murder. Robert had got 22 years minimum, Andrew was 18 years minimum, and Donna was 17 years minimum.
No, I don't like that. Why has he gotten more than her?
Because they believe that he was the one that delivered the blows to actually...
Andy?
No, Robert. But
so why did Andy get more than Donna? Because Donna and Robert were the ones who were apparently beating her up.
I honestly, I don't know. I couldn't find any sentencing remarks on these three, but the reason that Robert got more was because they believed that he was the one that was delivering the blows. But I don't know why there was that difference between Andrew and Donna. No, I'm not entirely sure. But I'm glad that they were all convicted, because at the end of the day, just because he was the one that was hitting her, they all left her in the water. You know,
there were four adults there who
they didn't go and get help. They were all responsible for her death at the end of the day, whether or not they were the ones that hit her or not. They were all responsible. They were all there, and they didn't do enough to save her. So, yeah, it's kind of sad.
That is really sad. I have questions.
Go on.
Where's Donna's kid?
I didn't ever find anything else about this either, and because I thought about that, but I genuinely don't know. But if she was a heroin addict, who knows whether or not that she even kept the baby. Exactly.
Well, I hope they're okay. I hope they're well shot of their parents. My other questions would be, I wonder why it was so premeditated. Because it was premeditated. I fully believe that. They were going there to harm her. Can't say whether or not they were going there to kill her, but she was going there with the intention of meeting Robbie.
Yeah.
And
they obviously took that opportunity to. I think that their idea was, because if you remember, those witnesses heard them say that was a setup, that wasn't meant to happen, and so whether or not it was the fact that they had gone down there hoping maybe to just scare her and beat her up a little bit, but then
maybe to rob her. Maybe she did have heroin on her. Maybe they were meant to rob her of it, and it was in her shoes.
Yeah, but then it went too far.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, they all.
But then my questions would be like, where's she getting the heroin? Because then someone else is grooming her. She's a child. Like,
yeah.
Yeah. Lots. I think It's tragic though. It's tragic that a child's life can be like that at such a young age.
Mm. Oh, for sure. But I would definitely recommend watching the murder trial because it was really interesting to see it inside the court. It wasn't
Um,
just like reenactments. It
I didn't know
was,
that was allowed.
I mean, there's the whole series on it, so there are a few I think they have allowed it for. But it was really interesting and it also showed their reactions to certain things and it just infuriated me because it was like you just they were just reacting to things and like shaking their head and rolling their eyes and I just
But
thought, oh,
equally, you've also not grown up in that 20 years.
yeah,
Because
exactly.
surely, if you make that mistake at 18, by the time you're 38, you are so racked with guilt.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they're not. They're like, oh God, finally you got caught up with them. Oh God, go away, bore off.
Yeah. And that his her Caroline's mother, she was there the entire time. She said that she felt like she owed it to Caroline to be there and to see it through because she was her mum and she didn't want to be there for her. Um and she just said that although yeah they've been convicted guilty, that for the last 23 years at the time that they had lived and they had been
Yeah.
out and they had enjoyed birthdays and Christmases and
Mm.
holidays and they had lived their lives and that was 23 years and 23 birthdays and 23 Christmases that
But
Caroline
Caroline
didn't
didn't
get to.
get. I hope
Exactly.
that they were always looking over their shoulders and never
Yeah, I
knowing when
hope
it was
so
going to
too.
come and get them.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I agree.
I mean, tragic,
Very
tragic,
tragic.
tragic, tragic. Don't do drugs.
Don't do
That's the,
drugs. And
that's
don't date boys.
life lessons for us all.
Yeah.
Life lessons for us all.
I know.
Uh, Next one from me is
It's
just
what?
prepare. It's so wild. Just prepare to be so mad, so mad.
Okay.
And
I don't know how I felt about this one today because it was a bit different because it did a lot more on the trial. A lot of the information that I got was about the trial, and I don't know whether it flowed as much. I don't know if I liked it as much, but let
try something new.
try something new. What did you think of it?
I liked it. I think
It
I
was.
yeah.
I felt like I needed to do like a a closing statement to like put it all together because it just felt like I was saying lots of different evidence, but it wasn't really all fitting together so much. But I guess I don't know. Yeah, no. Let us know what you think in the comments.
Or you shouldn't have told us the ending and then let people guess.
Or then they could have just googled.
Yeah, I know, but that
Okay,
ruins the game.
that's also true.
But
Yeah.
anyway, I liked it. I think that the only thing you could have added was like what happened in the 23 years. Like, what were they doing?
Nothing. That's the thing.
What, the case was just cold. Nothing
It was
happened.
cold. No.
Wow.
Like I said, they had a few like
They just
in
left it in a box.
at the 20-year anniversary. They did a whole appeal for more information, but like nothing came of it. And it wasn't until 2019 that they started opening it and doing more, and then it was 2021 that these people were charged. So for those 2 years, they were taking all of these witness statements and going back over all of that evidence. But aside from that, I couldn't find much going on at all.
Just left it in a box and all got on with it. Well, thank you so much.
You are
I
welcome.
am going to have a nap. Please go and follow us on all socials. We are 26tolife_pod on Instagram and TikTok. We are 26tolife_pod on YouTube and Spotify. We love doing this. It keeps us entertained, even on days like today when we feel horrendous. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Love y'all.
Speak to you later. I love you.